Well, thanks, Tony. I think after all that time, you do need to take a bit of a break, don't you? Now you can enjoy the start of the sidecar competition. That's always a good start, isn't it? When you start using a microphone, it packs up on you in the first couple of seconds. Well, let's hope the day doesn't continue like that for me, because I know we're in for a cracking sidecar competition this afternoon. Look at the lineup we've got for the very first race of the day. In the sidecar competition, of course, you've got Owl and John Blewett out there, you've got Steve Smith rustling, and it is rustling that's actually got to the front as they go into that first bend. Well, indeed, the first time really this year we've seen all the big sidecars together, and Steve Smith, we know, has done a lot of work during the winter. Rustling and Paul Urich look as immaculate as they always do. We know again they've done a lot of work during the closed season, and we wonder what they have in fact got in store for us. Ken Lane at the back of the field at the moment, and indeed Alan and John Blewett, not where we expect to see them, but right up at the front in very good form at the moment. Rustling and Paul Urich being pursued by Steve Smith and Keith Wall. It's those two that have got away in third place. You can see that we've got number one. That of course is Craig Cheatham and Clive Reynolds, and Neville Penfold and Paul Randall trying to close on those two. Oh, the gap's starting to open up, but Steve Smith determined to close that gap at the front. Rustling really flying down that back straight. It's there that he seems to get the advantage. Steve Smith does look to catch him in the corners, but it's down the straights that Rustling does look to have that extra bit of power. We watch to see them go into the last lap this time, and you can see that Steve Smith is so much closer this time. As Rustling hit a problem, I wonder, because Steve Smith seemed to fly by him past me. And it's now Steve Smith and Keith Wall that have got to the front. Rustling and Paul Urich are still there in second place, though. No change to third at the moment, but Ken Lane has done well to work his way through in the fourth place to get around Neville Penfold and Paul Randall. I can think that he's going to be pushing to the line on the back wheel of Craig Cheatham. But as they come to the line, the first race of the day is a win for Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Rustling and Paul Urich get second. Craig Cheatham and Clive Reynolds do hang on to that third place, and it's Ken Lane that pulls up into that fourth 22. Just wondering, Tony, have we advertised Grasstrack at all this afternoon? I know they've been going around selling the raffle tickets, but they've got a stand here as well, haven't they?
Well, I did mention it early on, Jim, but it's never too late to mention Grasstrack, because we've got an interval coming up, and I'm sure a lot of people like to support Grasstrack's stall. As I said, we've got a raffle, we've got various other things going on that stall, which is to our left. And you've been down there spending your money already, I understand, so they're doing okay, but they can always do with a little more help, because, of course, that money goes to the Injured Riders Fund.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I think they do very well out of me as the whole season goes on, but there we are, one of the problems of having so many kids, I suppose. Race 22, the Berks Bonanza sidecar competition, and we look to see what they've done so far. Tremendous lineup in this one. Steve Smith, riding number 2, has had a win already this afternoon. Roger Measor put that exceptional time up in his first ride. He's had a win so far, and as we get underway, will it be a straight scrap between those two, or is anybody else going to get involved? It looks as if there's problems for Roger Measor on the far side. I can see Shane's hand going in the air, and Roger indeed coasts down that first straight. So no, it won't be a scrap between Steve Smith and Roger Measor. We've got everybody else in contention again, and great to see Rob Wilson out in front. He scored no points at all first time out. He pulled off into the centre of the circuit with mechanical problems. But good to see that Rob Wilson and Tony Miles have got things sorted out, and they're now out in front of Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Ken Lane is the rider that's up there in third place at the moment, trying to put pressure. But look who's back in fourth, Steve and Gary Wright. Now they were in that sort of position in their first ride. They came through and got up into a good result at the end of the day. We wonder if they're going to do the same thing again. Ken Lane closing the gap slightly on Steve Smith. Still quite a considerable gap between first and second though. Rob Wilson and Tony Miles determined to hang on to this one. But again, Ken Lane starts to close on Steve Smith. Oh, I'd say the gap was opening up. Steve Smith certainly closing that top bend. Ken Lane having a go on the inside though to try and get through on Steve Smith. Steve Smith equally having a go to try and take that lead. Well, Ken Lane goes for the inside line. You can see exactly what's happening. Steve Smith is trying to get round Rob Wilson. By trying to get round Rob Wilson, he's leaving gaps for Ken Lane to go for. That always makes an interesting corner, because you can see Ken Lane will be watching which way Steve Smith goes. He'll actually be trying to get away round Rob Wilson. As they come off that top corner, they come to the line. It's going to be a win for Rob Wilson, is it? Just on the line, Rob Wilson and Tony Miles take it from Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Ken Lane and Mark Edwards finishing in third. Steve and Gary Wright crossing the line in fourth. So as a Well, we're looking across that far side. We can see that Steve Smith is already on the line. John Halsey there as well. There's a lot of people looking around Rob Wilson's machine, but whether he is actually okay. But away we go, and as we look to that far side, it looks like John Halsey has made a very good start once again. We saw him do this earlier on. Around the outside he goes, and into that first bend. Steve Smith has gone after him. Craig Cheetham is trying to get up into that third place. So as we look to see them come out of that first bend, Rob Wilson has got away. Well, Steve Smith has gone after him in that second spot. Oh, it looks like John Halsey has got that third place in front of Craig Cheetham as they come around that bottom bend. A good scrap between those two. But Rob Wilson, knowing that he's got to do well in this one, he's missed that first result. If he gets a good result in this one, he's into the semi-final, and then he certainly has a chance to get to that final. Come down past us for the second time. Rob Wilson and Tony Miles. John Halsey still right up there in third place, at Craig Cheetham just pushing all the way, trying to get through into that third spot. Craig has scored well so far this afternoon, so a good result in this one will make sure of a good place in that semi. But as we watch that top corner, are we going to see a challenge for this first place? Going so well this afternoon, looking to get closer and closer all the time. Into that pit bend they go, and they're still following Rob Wilson. Oh, really two different races to watch here at the moment. That first and second, is Steve Smith going to go for that first place on the last end, or is he content with second place? Equally looking at that third spot, it looks as if John Halsey has now got himself sorted out. Has he? As Craig Cheetham closes up again, that third place. He's going to be close to the line, but Rob Wilson holds it from Steve Smith. Waiting for this third spot, and it is John Halsey that has holds on. Craig Cheetham then content with the fourth place. John Hiscock finishing in fifth, and as we always know, we're here at the Berks Bonanza, coming rapidly towards the close, and indeed we've just got those big races to come. Who is it that's going to join Gary Jackson, Russell Ing and Roger Measor in that final? That's my unofficial points, I'll say no more than that, but I've got those three on good points at the moment, looking like a place in the final, but we've got to get the result from race 34, and that is indeed underway as they go down that back straight. Looking to see who it is that's made it to that first corner. Steve and Gary Wright have had a cracking start and got to the front as they go into that first corner. Well, Steve and Gary Wright are on 11 points at the moment. Into that final. They look to be going well at the moment. Rob Wilson is up there in second with Steve Smith right on the inside of him. Those two outfits together in second place. Nothing to split them from where I'm looking at the moment. Perhaps there is from where you're seating, but on the far side I can now see that Steve Smith has moved through into second, or has he? Rob Wilson tries to go back round the outside again. Steve and Gary Wright though, capitalising on that brilliant start. They are in front of the come past up. From Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Well, Rob Wilson and Tony Miles still there in second place. Craig Cheetham is holding that fourth spot at the moment, but under pressure from Ivor Matthews. It starts to get a little bit spread out. A good ride this from Steve and Gary Wright though. They've certainly capitalised on that excellent start they had as they go into the last lap. In second. Rob Wilson again tries to have a go at that second spot. Craig Cheetham is still there in fourth place, but he's under pressure once again from Ivor Matthews. Ivor Matthews looking to go around the outside, but as we watch the far side, Rob Wilson has got that second place now from Steve Smith. Well, Steve, the highest point scorer so far in this semi-final, so this third place should be enough for him, but we'll wait to see how it all works out. Because the man who has done well in this line, he gets across the line in first place. Rob Wilson gets second, Steve Smith in third, Craig Cheetham in fourth, and Ivor Matthews in fifth place.
And it looked as if this season might be a good one for him. Looked very, very quick indeed. Number 2, Steve Smith and Keith Wall had a good ride up at North Berks last week, finishing in third place. John Halsey does go in this one. I nearly put him in the earlier race, but he does go in this one and has indeed made a very good start as he goes down that back straight. I should advise you that the passenger has changed for number 13, John Halsey. Steve Smith and Keith Wall is the outfit that's gone up into second. Jerry Adams in the third at the moment with passenger Paul Baisby. As we look down that far side, that looks like changing. I can see that we've got an out Rich Blackburn. Being caught by Alan and John Blewett, who go through on the inside. They go a little bit wide. They've allowed Rex Blackburn to come underneath them, but look at the battle going on for first place as well. Well, as I took my attention onto that battle for third and fourth place, you can see that Steve Smith has now got ideas. Going hard on the inside, and then they've equally tried the following lap going wide coming out of this top bend. That looks to be the better line as Steve Smith now pulls away from John Halsey and Jason Glennie. Alan and John Blewett are working hard. Third place. Third in front. But it's a win for Steve Smith. Second for John Halsey. Alan and John Blewett in third. Across that far side, it's the start of race 14. A chance to see both the early leg winners, Steve Smith and Roger Measor together. Mick Cave has gone up with them at the front of the field as they go into that first corner. It's Roger Measor that's got to the very front though. The red flag again in the interest of safety being put out. As you can see, we've lost an outfit on that top corner. As they coast to a halt, you can see they'll be making their way back to the start line. These two both on maximum points at the moment from their first ride. Oh, looking across that far side, it doesn't look as if Keith Hall's quite happy with something at the moment. He's indicating to the starter that... oh, indeed, we've still got no Neville Penfold on the line. Oh, whatever it was that Steve Smith wanted done to the bike has now been done. They indeed come to the line. Away we go then with the start of race 14. Roger Measor has made an absolute flyer from the inside. Mick Cave is the rider that's getting gone after him. He's had some good starts this afternoon, but Steve Smith is up in third. It got close as they got near to us, but indeed it was Mick Cave that managed to hang on to it. Still there in second place as they go down that back straight for the second time. Steve Smith and Keith Hall, they've got the fight on their hands to try and get past Mick Cave and Mick Stace. Roger Measor looks over his shoulder. Oh, Steve Heath holding that fourth place at the moment. As I can see that Neville Penfold and Vince Jones have pulled out to the centre of the circuit, but that race really is on for that second place. Roger Measor holding off at the moment. One more lap to go, and Steve Smith tries to find a way through on the inside. Mick Cave doesn't want to let him through though. Down that back straight, he holds on to that second place. One more corner to negotiate then as they go into this. Hang on to that second place, so Steve Smith and Keith Wall get through. Steve Heath and Steve Wright finish in 4th place. No other finishers in race 14. Oh, we look to race 23. This another of the third leg rides that we see Russelling and Rob Wilson out together. The two of them equal on 12 points from 2 rides. So both of them having had a win, both of them having had a 2nd place. They're out with Peter Adams, Steve Smith, Steve Heath and Tim Bennett. Steve Smith, of course, on 11 points. He's had a win and a 3rd place. It gets very, very tight for these qualifying places. Of course, it's only 6 that go to the final. Although Gary Jackson was well down on points, as well as Mick Kay and Mick Stace, they've got now right into the picture with those results from that first ride in race 22. We watch to see what happens in race 23. Steve Smith looks to have made a good start. Rob Wilson on the outside, even though equally has made a very good start. Tim Bennett goes after them. It means that in 4th place is Russelling. But as we look to that first into the front. Steve Smith up in 2nd place goes after him. Tim Bennett now under pressure from Russelling in that 3rd spot. But as we watch to the far side, it's Rob Wilson and Tony Miles that lead around that top end. We've seen them have some very good results here in this line. Fighting their way through in 2nd place. Tim Bennett still managing to hold off Russelling. You can see that Russell's trying the inside and then the outside. He's not sure which way to get round Tim Bennett. But Tim riding a very good ride at the moment as they go into that top end. Rob Wilson. As we watch them go into the line, I must have been being drawn by what's happening in that 3rd and 4th place, because I thought that Russelling would be fighting it out with Rob Wilson and Steve Smith. Instead, he's had a fight with Tim Bennett. Steve Smith indeed coasting to the line, but it means that Tim Bennett gets 2nd, Russelling gets 3rd. Indeed, I think it means that Steve Smith finishes in 5th place in front of Steve Heath. Well, again, that makes the point situation very interesting indeed. And I can see that Steve looking down at that engine. I don't think it is just a chain off. We wonder what it was, but that's... Oh, we've seen the Solo B final. That's race 25. We move on to race 26, a lineup that includes Steve Smith, Mick Cave, Tim Bennett, Alan and John Blewett, Ivor Matthews and Reg and Colin Blackburn. You can see that most of the outfits are already out of the pit box. Well, indeed, we understand that Alan and John Blewett have indeed left us already, so we would expect to see that reserve Jerry Adams coming out in their place. Looking to that far side, I can see Tim Bennett has got a middle gate right on the far side. Mick Cave and Mick Stace. Well, indeed, there is only 5 outfits starting this consolation final. Tim Bennett's made a very good start. Steve Smith has gone with him, but he allows Tim Bennett to go into that first bend in front. He's gone very wide on the exit. Tim Bennett had the power on. He allowed him to go into that first bend. He overshot the exit and Steve Smith pulled it round on the inside. Brilliant ride from Steve Smith and Keith Wall. They indeed now get themselves to the front, and I'm sure they're very disappointed they didn't make this Man of Kent 8 final. Tim Bennett having a good ride this afternoon, riding in second. Jerry Adams now putting him under pressure as they come out of that pit bend. Not a good day for Reg and Colin Blackburn. They've had all sorts of problems as the day's gone on. Showing us that there is still an awful lot out there. He picked the front wheel up coming out of this top bend and he was struggling to get it back down on the ground again. Well, that's something we've perhaps got to watch for the A final because there still is a lot of grip. I've been hearing all day that the riders are saying there is so much grip out there. Oh, look at Jerry Tim Bennett hangs on to second place. Jerry in third place. Mick Cave and Mick Stace crossed the line in fourth. And it's going to be Reg and Colin Blackburn coasting round for that fifth spot. But disappointing perhaps that Steve Smith and Keith Wall are not in the A final, but a very convincing win in...
Right, thank you, Tony. I thought we were just getting a message from the paddock, but obviously not. On that race 13, nice to see Jason Handley get some points. Of course, he failed to score first time out. And also Andy Sell getting second spot there, who also failed to score first time out after that tumble. I always think back to 1982 when I see Andy Sell. Of course, he was out of the sport for a long time. But he did compete in the first Masters back in 82, and I know then he was a real super young guy. He's a little bit older now, a little bit more mature, but he's still a super rider. We're into race 14, and we've just got 3 outfits in this, and as they come off the bend for the first time, we've got number 15, Ivor Matthews, leading. And Ray Foreman, so it's all Midland Tender battle, this one, with Ivor Matthews leading by a whisker from the Foreman brothers, who won first time out in second place, and Steve Smith and Keith Wall back in third. Well, Steve on the Godden. Now in Steve, I'm sure he's not going to be happy with third spot for long, and I'd expect him to challenge the Foreman. Really, at the moment, having a super ride there in second place, but Ivor Matthews it is, leading with Peter Jones in the chairs. They go down the back straight. Steve Smith now makes his way up in the second spot. So, Steve Smith and Keith Wall into second. The Foreman brothers relegated back to third. So Ivor Matthews and Pete Jones lead by some 60 metres, 50, 60 metres now from Steve Smith and Keith Wall, and the Foreman brothers there in third. So non-starters in this one were Pete Dyer, Jerry Adams and Mark Edwards. Phil Prescott obviously not going to participate in the meeting. A little bit of smoke coming out of Steve's out in third, but no problem. Checkered flag and a win for Ivor Matthews and Pete Jones, Steve Smith and Keith Wall in second place, and Len and Ray Foreman in third place.
So we've now got 5 outfits on that start line ready to go for the restart. Away goes the tapes again. You can see that it's a very, very quick start once again. Steve Smith has made a good run on the inside. All sorts of trouble there in the middle of that start straight. Hunter's managed to sort it out. They've all got through that first bend. Indeed, you can see as they go down that back straight, it is Reg and Colin Blackburn that have got to the front as Steve Smith and Keith Wall are close to them in second spot. But as they come round past me for the second time, oh, you can see the same as me. It's Reg and Colin. John Hall's running fourth at the moment, but now Steve Smith starts to go around the outside. Oh, it's a long way to go, and Reg will try to get back underneath him again in this pit bend. He'll hope that Steve has committed himself too quickly into that bottom bend, which is exactly what's happened, but Steve Smith has gone very wide, but he's still stayed very, very quick indeed. John Hall is trying to stay with him as he down that back straight. Well, I'm sure that Len Foreman had seen exactly what Steve Smith did. He knows where the lines are to be able to overtake. As he comes round that pit bend, he starts to key up Reg Blackburn as he comes round by up. In that second place, more than up to front. Oh, they've got away. So Reg and Colin Blackburn have had to fight hard to hang on to that second place. Oh, Len and Ray Foreman again go for the outside. John Hall's is closing up as well. As they come to the line, Steve Smith takes it, but it's going to be close to the other places. In that battle to try and get second, and Len and Ray Foreman in third place. Well, Steve Smith, the last to come in line, he goes into grid 3 on the start gate. The starter indicating that he's happy, everybody's in line. Again, the starter not letting the tapes go, and they're not happy with outfits pushing the tapes by the look of it. Again, the outfit's being pulled back off the line, so obviously somebody not happy with what's going on down there. Well, again, I can't see what the problem is, but at long last they've all come into line. They've let the tapes go this time. It looks like we've got them underway. Oh, Andy Simon. Gary and Steve Wright went through tight on the inside. Steve Smith has followed them. But it's Roger Measor and Shane Lapham that have managed to get away as they go down the back straight. Oh, looking to see if Steve Smith can come through into that second spot, but Gary and Steve Wright have it at the moment as they come round past third. Watch them go down the back straight. I mentioned that Russell Ing has had 2 wins so far. Roger Measor will be anxious, of course, to equal that. He holds the lead at the moment. Gary and Steve Wright, they're in second. Rod Winterburn is holding that 4th spot, and not being able to close up on Steve Smith, and I'm interested to see that Gary Wright can stay in front of Steve Smith. Steve looked very, very good in his first ride. Oh, Roger Measor equally. He's hard, has not the momentum this time. He's a lot closer to Gary Wright, so watch to see what happens in this last bend. Roger Measor is away, but is it going to be a fight to the line for second place? Steve Smith has gone the long way round. Looking for second as they come to the line, but Gary Wright has hung on. Steve Smith gets second. Rod Winterburn gets third. Andy Simon's finishing in fifth.
Roy Spreadbury and Steve Kensington for South. Rory McGuigan and Glenn Shuttle for South Western. Rod and Chris Winterburn for East Midlands. North Yorkshire represented by Rob Liverstitch and Aidan Maud. And Eastern by Steve Todd and Roy Field. So, some experience in this one, not more so than number 2, Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Steve won his first British Championship, believe it or not, 21 years ago, back in 1973. Roy French in the chair in those days, and Smithy gets away in second spot, but as they go into the top end, I think it was Roger McGuigan who made the gate. Not as they come off the line, McCabe it is who leads by some 20 metres from Steve Smith there in second place, Roy Spreadbury in third. And Chris Terrell just at the back of the field at the moment, but I'll guarantee Chris Terrell won't be there for long. Right, still the order is the same. Mick Cave and Mick Stace lead as they go into the top end. Steve Smith and Keith Wall in second. That's the 1-2, and there's Steve taking a wide line on the top end, but Mick Cave getting away a little bit. Smith then still in second place. Still there in third place. Roy Spreadbury and Steve Kensington. Well, Steve Smith a little bit closer to Mick Cave as they go up the back straight into the top end for the 3rd time. We're going to be into the last lap. And still Cave leads, but here comes Smithy, and Steve Smith goes up the inside. Mick Cave in second place. In third place still, Roy Spreadbury. Number 34 there, Steve Todd. Slowing a little bit as they go into the bottom turn, but as we look up the back straight, it's still Steve Smith. And problems. So looking to our right, it's going to be a win for number 2, Steve Smith and Keith Wall. In second place, Mick Cave and Mick Stace. Third place goes to number 19, Roy Spreadbury and Steve Kensington. And in fourth place was number 34, Steve Todd, and third place taken by number 12, Jerry Adams and Paul Baisby. So we got number 2, Steve Smith, Keith Wall, number 12, Jerry Adams, Paul Baisby, 13, Phil Pittman, 19, Roy Spreadbury, 21, Chris Holloway, 26, Rich Blackburn, 31, Bill Bradley, and 35 is Phil Johnson. Into the first turn, we can see Steve Smith round the outside, switching to the inside. I was going to say to lead as they come off the turn, but it's Phil Pittman leading. Phil Pittman and Gary Lane lead as they go into balance turn, and Steve Smith and Keith Wall trying to come through on the inside. But still the Cornish crew lead as they go up the back straight. So, Pittman and Lane lead by literally 2 bike lengths over Steve Smith and Keith Wall. They come off the top turn for the second time, that's the 1-2. In third place behind them, Royce Burberry and Steve Kenchington. We think, no it wasn't, it was Jerry Adams and Paul Baysby. And Chris Hathaway and Jeff Knight just going through in about 7th place. Well, meanwhile, change to the leader, Steve Smith and Keith Wall now leading off the top end by some 10 metres from in second place, going very, very well, number 13, Phil Pittman and Gary Lane. In third place still, number 12, Jerry Adams and Paul Baysby. And behind them, number 26, Roger and Colin Blackburn. Well, checker flag at the ready, and Smith is out. Steve Smith goes out on the top turn. So, disaster again for the middle and centre. But a win for Phil Pittman and Gary Lane. Second place, number 12, Jerry Adams and Paul Baysby. Third, Steve Smith. In fourth place.
Have we, Jim? No, going back to the circuit, I mean, perhaps when the grass has come off, it's rolled after practice. Nice bit of sun on it, perhaps we'll get some grip. I mean, most sidecar competitors have changed the setups of the bike just for this one track to suit the tyres as well. And who knows, really, it could be a whole bit different ball game.
I'll tell you what, if he wins it, I shall be bloody chuffed at bollocks for him.
Are we allowed to cut that bit out?
Outfit number 2, one of the drivers that has one of the best pedigrees in this competition. We wonder what's going to happen this year. Steve Smith and Keith Wall.
So that competition certainly starting to develop and become very interesting indeed. Trevor Banks now 4 points behind that second place, but as we look to the sidecar competition, we get underway with our first race of the day for the sidecars, and has all the preparation worked as we see Rob Wilson making the best of the starts as they get in that first bend. And interestingly enough, I can see that Roger Measor has brought his Grasstrack bike out, so feeling much more comfortable with that. He did practice with the Speedway style outfit, and he's come out on his grass outfit. So as we start the sidecar competition, we've got Rob Wilson going very wide on that bottom bend as Ivan Matthews and Peter Jones with a tremendous pedigree at this circuit. They really have had some great rides and great results here at Tunbridge. They're starting to develop into quite a scrap in this first race of the afternoon. Look at Roger Measor coming through on the inside. He's got through Ivan Matthews. He's now on the inside of Rob Wilson. All three of those outfits together in this bottom bend. As we see, the sidecar competition is going to be very, very hot this afternoon. Roger Measor and Shane Lapham get to the front there as they go into the top bend. Ivan Matthews still looking for that second place. Rob Wilson wants that second place as well. As he goes down the bank straight, Peter Jones trying to get every inch of power out of that machine for Ivan Matthews. As you go into this bottom bend, Rob Wilson has got into second again, but he's gone very, very wide. I think that Ivan Matthews is going to get the advantage, and look at Steve Smith coming through now. Steve Smith has worked his way through after a disastrous start. He's got himself up into third place and is already looking for second. As Roger Measor and Shane Lapham start to pull away going down that back straight. That's certainly where the power seems to be paying off for Roger Measor, going down that back straight. Into this bottom bend again, you can see that Steve Smith is having a challenge for that second place. Ivan Matthews desperately hanging on to it, but Roger takes the win. Ivan Matthews gets second place, but only just on the line from Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Rob Wilson, the early leader, back in fourth place. What a cracking way to start the sidecar competition. We knew it was going to be tough, but did you expect a race like that first time out? Tremendous sidecar action. We hope it continues, said to the sidecar competition. Well, as we look to the second rides, Steve Smith had a good ride first time out. He goes again in this one against Ivan Matthews. And John Halsey, who had a win first time out. Away we go, and it is John Halsey and Jason Glennie that get to the front as they go into that first bend. Pursued by Ivan Matthews, and Steve Smith is there on the outside as well. So with the first ride win for John Halsey and Jason Glennie, things look to be going in the right direction. competition, certainly for John Halsey and Jason Glennie this afternoon. Ivan Matthews holding a brilliant tight line on that bottom bend. He really has got the sight lines worked out, but the outfits that have been forced to go wide do appear to be getting around the bends a little bit quicker than Ivan Matthews. Trying to get that second place to go down that back straight, working hard on that outfit to get into that second spot. But again, watch how Ivan Matthews hugs a really, really tight line. Everybody else drifts out, but Ivan Matthews does come through tight once again. John Halsey and Jason Glennie are doing the points quickly in between the first leg ride, and they are moving up from 9th place that they were in before they started the competition, or the second half of the competition I should say, of course, this afternoon. And by my reckoning they've got themselves up into equal 6th place from that first ride, so you can see how quickly the positions change. And when I talk about positions changing, Steve Smith's going to go for the win in this second ride. He's pushing hard on John Halsey. John, I'm sure, is aware that he's there now as they come into this bottom bend. Steve Smith looks for the outside line as they start to come towards the line. John Halsey has put it almost sideways, and Steve Smith is going to take it. Steve Smith takes the win. John Halsey gets second. Ivan Matthews gets third. Well, I'm sure John Halsey and Jason Glennie would have felt they were sailing home to another win. But tremendous riding once again from Steve Smith. Lane 26, Reg and Colin Blackburn, and I can confirm that that is Colin Blackburn that's riding passenger for Reg. I did have some confusion myself earlier on, but I'm told he's had to borrow a set of leathers. His being torn in one of the earlier races. But as we get underway with this, the second semi-final, look to see who it is that makes it into that first corner. We can see it's Alan and John Blewett that have got there. Steve Smith on the inside of there, and it's Steve Smith that comes through on that inside and goes down that back straight. Well, they certainly have found some grip this afternoon, haven't they? Steve Smith with tremendous power out of that top bend as he comes round off this pit bend, leading now, and Alan and John Blewett go wide again. Gary Jackson trying to come through on the inside of them. Well, Gary Jackson's got very, very close to Alan and John Blewett, and have they found a hole? They certainly have as they go through in that top bend. Alan and John trying to keep in touch with them as they go down that back straight. But now John Hiscock has moved up on Alan and John Blewett. So a fight still for that third place as we've got Steve Smith and Keith Wall leading as they come round off that bottom bend. Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams holding second place. Alan and John Blewett still there in fourth. John Hiscock and Tony Bemiston look desperate to try and get that third place. But as they come round off the bottom bend, it's Steve Smith and Keith Wall that go into the last lap. They really have had a cracking day here this afternoon. 3 wins already this afternoon, just that third place early on. They certainly have scored well. Now winning this second semi-final, I think that's going to take them through into the big final. But remember, it's still points to get added on as they go through. So as we go to that checkered flag, it's a win for Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams get second, and John Hiscock and Tony Bemister get that third place. Alan and John Blewett back in fourth. And as we go into this final, it is so close on points. We've seen what's happened in the solo final. Anything could happen in the sidecar final because the points are so close. Number 23, Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams, they sit on 51 points. Closest to them is Roger Measor on 51 as they get underway already. We're going to try and pick up on those points. But all sorts of things can happen. I think my brain's going to go addled on the arithmetic as we try and work this one out as they go round. But it's Alan and John Blewett that have made the game. And it's Steve Smith that comes through on the inside. So Steve Smith right on the inside. Ivan Matthews follows him on that gap been left by Alan Blewett as they go into this bottom bend. Roger Measor is in fourth place at the moment. But Gary Jackson, more interestingly, is right at the back of the field. So Roger Measor must know that he's not got Gary Jackson in front of him. And as they look to go around that top corner, Steve Smith is at the moment. Do the mental arithmetic or do we enjoy the racing? Let's leave the arithmetic till afterwards because Ivan Matthews and Peter Jones go round the outside. Of course, both these outfits in front of Roger Measor further down on the points as Ivan Matthews now gets to the front.
Ivor Matthews, in fact, getting to the front now in a position where he's scored 7 points, but putting back overall on 54. While there's some counterpoints back, Steve Smith also was equal on 47 points. He will, of course, finish with 5 points if they stay as they are. And Roger Measor collecting perhaps 4 points. I don't believe this. I'm not going to trust my own arithmetic on this one because it is so close. I need to confirm this one whether they finish, because if they stay like they are, I'm not going to tell you what the result is until I've had this confirmed whether that's true. The points are so close as they come up to take the checkered flag. Ivor Matthews and Peter Jones take the final. Steve Smith and Keith Wall get second. Roger Measor and Shane Lapham hang on to third. Russell Ing and Paul Ulrich finish in fourth place. Well, work the points out for yourselves. How were the points scored? 7 for a win. Ivor Matthews and Peter Jones at 7 to 47. My arithmetic tells me that's 54.
You must be bloody brilliant.
Steve, of course, who won the Masters in 1983, 1990. Fourth this year.
Smoking well.
This day, a television really was coming good on that track. These days, living in Sutton Coldfield, having started off in the Birmingham area, and then moved up to Yorkshire, and then moved back again. Lots of grip, nice little wheelie. Certainly when you look at these good cruiser actions, way in the right place as they come around the bend to our right here. Tighter line as frequently Steve tends to ride, although he has to come out a little way. A time for Steve Smith of 21.05.
Quicker than Rod.
So, full result then of the barn record for the sidecar class, sponsored by Griffiths Reclamation Services. The winners, number 23, Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams on 20.88. In the second place, outfit number 2, Steve Smith and Keith Wall on 21.05. So I'm looking across on the far side, race 8 being lined up. We go there, who's Mark Edwards making a good start by looks of things to look across the far side. Wow, Shane Baker also, I think, well up in contention. It's all happening on that bend as they come off. There seems to be just a little bit of a hole there. The Mark Edwards in his lead, Shane Baker in second place, Steve Smith in third, John Hiscock in fourth. And not a lot between the second and fifth places, I'd say. We've got 2 hours right now. Once again, and certainly Mark Edwards made a tremendous start. He got away from the opposition. Shane Baker is still hanging on grimly to second spot, Steve Smith in third, still John Hiscock in fourth. Andy Simons in fifth, and they've stretched out just a little bit now, but not very much in front of the winners then have got away. So then, Mark Edwards going on his way. Steve Smith looking to work his way through it. Steve Smith then trying to close the gap on the second place man. He's found a gap. He couldn't quite get through there. Shane Baker held him off. You may be wondering who it is with Pete Goodham. We decided it's Carl Wilkes, the 250 that's the Grasstrack sidecar man now. So here we go. So a 250 star one week and a passenger the next. Gosh. In first place, number 8. Mark Edwards with in the chair Nick Walters. In second place, number 39, Shane Baker and Clint Martin. In third place, number 2, Steve Smith and Keith Wall. In fourth place, number 184, John Hiscock, and in with John, let's have a quick scan over the pages because we don't want to leave anybody out. Oh, Tony Bemister, the birthday boy, of course. Excellent. And in fifth place, number 111, Pete Goodwin with Carl Wilkes in the chair. No sixth finisher. Winner's time, 1 minute 20.39. 1 minute 20.39. The numbers 8, 39, 2, 184, and a 11. So here we go then. Steve
Smith on the outside, not making the game terribly well, but making up for it as he goes down the back straight, because into the lead goes Roger Measor. Peter Dyer in second place, and Steve Smith on the inside trying to make his way through. And Shane Baker tied up in that too, and it's Shane Baker in fact sitting in third place behind Peter Dyer at the moment, and Steve Smith moves from fourth to third and looks to go from third to second. He goes after Peter Dyer. Hanging down low, but out in front it's Roger Measor and Shane Lapham, and Steve Smith majestically moves into that second spot. So it's Steve Smith and Keith Walner now in second, Peter Dyer in third, and in fourth place it's Shane Baker. And the British Masters champions going on their way, and one of their fiercest challengers, Steve Smith and Keith Wall, tapped in behind. And Steve Smith will be learning all the time as he races to follow Roger around this circuit. He will, I'm sure, with his excellent racing brain, be watching the lines that Roger is taking, watching the things he's trying. Victory then for Roger Measor. Steve Smith in that second place. Third place, Pete Dyer.
On 7 points. Takes fly, the right hand is underway again, and in this one we look for Steve Smith and Alan Curry as a pair. John Hiscock and then Ray Foreman as a pair. Round the first turn, it's John Halsey that makes it. He's the South Eastern Centre champion, newly crowned last week with his left a cap, and in goes Steve Smith and Keith Wall. So Steve Smith and Keith Wall take up the rein now. On their powered outfit, and John Halsey, Jason Glennie coming hard at him again in second place, but he's got it all sewn up. Steve Smith in full flight. You can never keep the man down. Jason Glennie and John Halsey, Jason Glennie going a bit wide trying to catch him, and then it's John Hiscock and Dave Steer. Down at the other end of the field. Round they come then, Steve Smith and Keith Wall. From John Halsey, Jason Glennie, Dave Steer, Andy Orchard, John Hiscock, Tony Bermister, then and Ray Foreman, and Alan and John Blewett. Obviously troubles for them to be at that end of the field. So the pairing split between first and sixth places, and the other pairs muddled up somewhere in between. Round they come then to the checkered flag, and it's number 2. Steve Smith and Keith Wall leading from number 13, John Halsey and Jason Glennie taking the second spot. Third spot to Dave Steer and Andy Orchard, then John Hiscock, Tony Bermister, then
I know that Tony said is one of the oldest titles that is surviving in the world of Grasstrack. If we look to that start line, there's certainly outfits here that would have a chance of Steve wants to in that first race. He's trying to go for the very tight lines. And as he goes down the back straight, you see that Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams did keep the advantage, but Steve Smith has done well to come through in the second place. It's Mark Edwards that's up in third place at the moment. And as we watch the see them come round that bottom bend, you can see that Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams. Everybody was struggling to get grip this morning. They said it was so slick that they just couldn't decide what gearing to use because there was just so much loss of power to the back wheel. But they were hoping it would dry out. I wonder if it has sufficiently enough. They certainly seem to be able to find some grip at the moment. But Steve Smith really does look to be going well. I would ask for whoever that is on the far side that if they could let that car driver know if those headlights distract the driver that you're flashing, that would be very bad news. So please can you refrain from doing that. We can see the headlights are flashing at the moment. If it's a child in there, can somebody please let them know, but it's not what is flashing. Closer and closer all the time. He seems to lose out just on the exit of that top bend. That's where Gary Jackson looks to be very, very powerful, and I wonder if that's going to play any sort of part in today's meeting, because he looks very, very quick indeed going around that 3/4 of the track. Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams. Race 17 has come to the line, and you can see that Rustling has got the outside gate. The gate positions, of course, in brackets in your program, so no, it's not a question that they can decide where they want to go. The grid positions have already been allotted to them. Steve Smith on grid 4, you can see just on the outside of the centre of the gate. Well, we watch to see them go, of course, to a missing arrow that John Blewett made a brilliant start. Rustling and Paul Urick go into that first bend. Remember, they went wide first time out. Roger Measor was able to get on the inside of them. This time they've managed to stay in front. It's Mark Edwards and Nick Walters that are going after them though, and they look to be catching them going down that back straight. Rustling obviously still not comfortable with the corners at the moment, going very steadily into the bend. Now turning the power on as he comes down that bottom bend. Trying to get better points this time. They're holding third spot at the moment, but under pressure from Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Steve Smith looking for the gap on the inside. Wasn't quite there. He drops back to fourth place again, but a good scrap developing for that third place as Rustling and Paul Urick really do open up the gaps in front. They were needing a win because they know that it's all about point scoring through that final. Second place, on that battle for third place. Nick Cave and Mick Cave still holding it, but Steve Smith looking for the gaps again. Follows Mick Cave around the corner this time. They've both got the same line as they go down that back straight. Will he be looking for a gap on the inside in this bottom bend? They're certainly close once again. And as I'm watching that battle for third place, you see that Mark Edwards has perhaps closed on Rustling as they go into the last lap. Again, that battle for that third place. Watch Steve Smith come through on the inside as he got there this time. He's slow coming out of the bend. Nick Cave will be conscious of that, but this time he's got away. Steve Smith and Keith Wall into third place then as we go into this last bend. It's Rustling that's going to come round and take the checkered flag. Good ride for Russell and Wall, second time out. Great ride for him and Nick Walters. They finish in second place. Third place, Baker and Alan Blewett, so only 4 outfits indeed go in race 29. But as we get underway, we want to see what happens. Lennon Roman up in second place as they go into that first bend. Steve Smith trying to sort himself out and get through the middle of those two. All sorts of things happening in that first bend. Gary Jackson still hasn't gone up there though. He's in third place at the moment, or has he? He goes through the inside of Steve Smith much, much quicker down that back straight. Has Steve Smith allowed him to go though, so he can perhaps get underneath him on the exit of this bend? Oh, we watch to see what happens, but no. This afternoon, Miles Simon. Oh, they go round that top bend, they've gone very, very wide. Well, I'm sure Gary Jackson and Steve Smith will have noticed that. They'll both be watching that next time round that top bend. But going well at the moment, Phil Pittman and Miles Simmons as they go into the bottom bend, still leading. And they've got some very formidable forces behind them, as you can see, having their own little battle. You see that Gary is again trying to go tight. They knew that Phil Pittman went wide on that top bend. Well, he's kept the power on and it's paid off once again. He's kept that gap as he goes down the back straight. This is a very good ride from Phil Pittman, and I've got to remind you, of course, that he did get third place here at the Whopper last year. So he perhaps knows that this ground suits him. He loves this sort of circuit. No one to serve at the moment. I'm sure it's very difficult for any of these drivers to see at the moment. And of course, the place to be when the conditions start getting like this is to be right at the front. One more corner to negotiate, as it looks as if Phil Pittman and Miles Simmons are going to get their second win of the afternoon. Well, they go towards the second flag. Steve Smith and Keith Wall get third.
Edwards. Goes through. Oh, Mark, what are you doing? Completely sideways coming out the bottom turn. I was going to say a brave bit of driving by Mark Edwards there to take the lead on the bottom turn, and then he gets it all sideways. So Smithy leads as they go into the bottom turn. Shane Baker there in second place. In third place, it's the Winterburn brothers, John Barnett just at the back at the moment. They're getting strung out a little bit up the back. I say John Barnett at the back. My apologies to John. He's in fifth place. Sixth place. Smithy then leads as they go into the last lap, pursued by Shane Baker. The Winterburn's in third place. Mark Edwards in fourth. In fifth place, John Barnett, and in sixth place, Albert Lewis. Checkered flag and ready. We look to our right, there'll be a win. Steve Smith and Keith Ball. In second place, number 39, Shane Baker and Clint Martin. Third place to the Winterburn brothers. Fourth place to number 8, Mark Edwards and Nick Walters. Fifth place is going to go to the Delta man, number 20, John Barnett and Dave Titley. And in fifth place, Albert Lewis and Tony Miles, number 12. Well, just looking across to the Clee Hills, at least the weather forecast was somewhere near right. It has cleared up just a little bit, still a bit cold, but as we look to our left, if you're not familiar with South Shropshire, the hill nearest to us is the Brown Clee, and the one in the distance is the Titterston Clee. And the Brown Clee, the highest hill in Shropshire. A lot of people think it's the Wrekin, but it's not. It's the Brown Clee. Data, I'm guessing, at that one. So, we know we've got the Winterburn brothers, number 148, Rod and Chris. We've got Phil Prescott, number 116, passengered by Dave Carter. Steve Smith and Keith Wall, and number 20, John Barnett and Dave Titley. Well, with all respect to the others, this should be a Steve Smith, Keith Wall. The good news from a racing point of view is that the Winterburns are out in front, so that's going to make a good race of it, with Steve having it all to do to pass the Winterburn boys. Rod and Chris, of course, both former solo riders. Flying out, and perfect for racing. Certainly see where you're going, and it's not too slick. Right, Steve Smith tries to go around the outside of the Winterburn brothers, which he does. Or does he? No, he doesn't. The Winterburns come back on the inside. Right. The outside, the Winterburns on the inside. Still Rod and Chris not giving up. But on the bottom turn, Steve Smith and Keith Wall just get the drive. And just as they get the drive, Keith's hand goes up, and I was going to say they're out of it, but they're back in the race. But it's Winterburn's leading. Checkered flags at the ready. Well, Keith with his hand in the air. Second, a little bit of smoke from the back of the outfit. Phil Prescott and Dave Carter finished third, and in fourth place, it's going to be John Barnett and Dave Titley. We've got number 12, Albert Lewis and Tony Miles. Number 148, Rod Winterburn and Chris Winterburn. Number 8, Mark Edwards and Nick Walters. And number... No, we haven't. I'm reading the wrong race out. Try again. 36. Race 36. 116, Phil Prescott and Dave Carter. We've got Andy Norris, hopefully, with Eddie Alvis. We've got 23, Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams. Number 2, Steve Smith and Keith Wall. And number 20, John Barnett and Dave Titley. So this will be an interesting one. Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams unbeaten this afternoon. But in this one, they're up against Smithy. So who's it going to be? The way Gary and Kevin are going, well, I think money's got to be on them.
bend. This is Smithy on the inside. Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams on the outside. This is going to be the race of the afternoon, no doubt about it. Right, Steve on the inside, Gary on the outside. And up the back straight, Gary with a little bit more steam than Smithy. Goes in the top turn in the lead, but Steve will have none of that. He's going to come back on the inside, I'm sure. But Gary Jackson in the lead by a whisker. Steve Smith and Keith Wall in second place. And in third place, it is Andy Norris and Eddie Alvis in fourth place, number 116, Phil Prescott and Dave Carter. Then we got John Barnett at the back. But up the back straight, Gary Jackson it is who leads from Steve Smith in second. Gary slows on the top 10 a little bit. Steve catches up. Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams absolutely in control. Going like a train, but nothing they can do. And then Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams, well, coming out of that bend, there must be a dip down there because noticeable there, Steve and Keith, in the dip, but they come down the straight for the last time. Gets another win from Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams. And Kevin can never win. Steve Smith and Keith Wall then second. Third place goes to Andy Norris and Eddie Alvis. Fourth place goes to number 116, Phil Prescott and Dave Carter.
Looked to be a non-starter. So the second of the sidecar race is proving to cause problems for one of the drivers. The rest of the outfit's being called into line. Red flag being put up, so whether they think they can get Mark Edwards' outfit going or not, I don't know. And Jason Barry come in. The place vacated by Mark Edwards and Nick Walters. We get underway then with a good start from Steve Smith. Tim Bennett has made a good start on the inside. We're getting into that first corner. Here's Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Tim Bennett and Steve Hargraves going second place into that first bend. And perhaps the most interesting position of all is that Russell was actually last into that first bend. He's already up to fourth place as Tim Bennett starts to close the gap on Steve Smith, who's got the lead. All into this pit bend for the first time, and Steve Smith and Keith Wall have got away. All sorts of problems in that first bend. Wrestling, in fact, climbing over the top of the strawberries. Well, the inside is perfect to avoid a rider. In fact, he's stuck in front of him. All sorts of problems for wrestling first time out. And no problems at all for Steve Smith and Keith Wall. They now start to get away from Tim Bennett in second place as they come round past us for the second time. Well, Tim Bennett and Steve Hargraves not able to close that gap at all at the moment. Nick Cave and Nick Stacer in fourth place. Well, Duncan Patton is holding fourth, but looks like they're going to lose that fourth place. And it looks as if they get machinery problems as they come past me. Jerry Adams moving up into that fourth. As already Steve Smith goes into his last lap. And looking across that far side, Duncan Patton in fact pulling off into the centre circle, so Wesley moving up just one place. As we watch to see the checker flag being prepared for Steve Smith this time, but last that flag seems to be held out for Russell and for Norwich, so a disappointing start to the day for them. But as we see Steve Smith and Keith Wall take their first checker flag of the afternoon, very casually indeed as they cross the line. Second place goes to outfit number 12, Tim Bennett and Steve Hargraves. As Mick Cave and Mick Stace just hang on in front of Jerry Adams to get that third spot. So we move to race 13 in your programme. And we hope to see Ivan Matthews and Peter Jones. Of course, they had no result at all first time out. Oh, Rob Wilson right on the inside. He had a disappointing result first time out as well. Only scoring 1 point from his first ride, so he'll be anxious to make it up. It is possible to get 3 good rides out of the 4 and still get a place in the final. All the outfits, of course, they will be conscious of that as they come past me for the first time. Steve Smith looks to make the best of the start. He gets to that first bend in first place. Rob Wilson is up in second. Ivan Matthews trying to come to on the inside of Rob Wilson and does so as he goes out that top bend. Matthews is the one that's putting in the challenge. Rob Wilson in third place in front of Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams. Around that top end, I wanted to see whether in fact any of them would step out a bit. Rob Wilson is the one that's done it. It means that Gary Jackson has moved through into third place. And you can see exactly the problem on that top end. The soil very, very soft over there, and indeed if they get out in it, they just lose grip completely. So all the outfit drivers now conscious of the fact they've got to keep it tight on the exit of that top end. Steve Smith doing exactly that, and Ivor Matthews has gone wide. Well, I saw Peter Jones put his hand in the air. I don't know whether they have hit a problem, because the outfit does seem to be going again, but Gary Jackson has certainly closed right up on Ivor Matthews. Into the last lap they go this time as they go past this. Comfortable for Steve Smith and Keith Wall. Ivor Matthews still going, but I think there is a question mark about whether it's a problem or not. Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams still holding third. Rob Wilson not being able to close that gap. As I say that, Rob Wilson has gone very, very wide. Looks as if he's lost out completely. Getting absolutely stopped in that bend. A second window for Steve Smith and Keith Wall as they come out for the second time. Ivor Matthews and Peter Jones get a result this time. Gary Jackson and Kevin Williams getting third. And Phil Petman crosses the line in fourth.